Hello everybody, it's Chris Clark with discgolf.law. There has been a development in Natalie Ryan's lawsuit in Minnesota against the Disc Golf Pro Tour and the PDGA, and I wanted to come on here and give you an update. As many of you likely know, Natalie Ryan filed a lawsuit in Minnesota alleging discrimination under the Minnesota Human Rights Act. In addition to her lawsuit, Natalie also filed a request for a temporary injunction to require the Disc Golf Pro Tour to allow her to play in the FPO division at the Preserve Championship. The judge has issued an order granting Natalie's request, and unless there are some additional unexpected legal developments between now and the time the tournament starts, Natalie will be playing in the FPO division at the Preserve. I'm not going to be able to cover all the topics that were addressed in the order from the court, but I do want to hit on some of the high points. First, the judge ruled that the Minnesota Human Rights Act does apply to the Disc Golf Pro Tour, the PDGA, and LaVisca Disc Golf Design. The court went on to say the argument from the defendants that filing of this injunction request was not timely, in other words, that Natalie waited too long to file for this, did have some merit to it, but was not fatal to her position, and therefore it was not a sufficient enough argument to deny Natalie's request. Now, in determining whether to issue a temporary injunction, courts look at a variety of different factors. In Minnesota, according to this order, they look at 5 different factors, but I just want to touch on 2 of them. The first one is they try to balance the harm to each party based on whether the injunction is issued or not. And so, in other words, who is likely to suffer greater harm? Would Natalie suffer greater harm if they denied her request? Or would the defendants suffer greater harm if they granted her request? The court held in this particular order that Natalie would suffer greater harm if this injunction was not granted. They said, she can lose out on potential sponsorship revenue and media coverage, things like that, whereas really there isn't any harm to the defendants, at least not any harm that they couldn't then later address. And so they found that that balancing weighed more in Natalie's favor than it did for the defendants. Another factor that the court considered in this balancing of harms was that the harm to Natalie, if this injunction wasn't granted, wasn't just monetary. They considered other types of harm, such as emotional distress, as one of the factors in this balancing test that came out in Natalie's favor. The second factor I wanted to touch on, and I think this one is really important, the likelihood that Natalie would prevail if this lawsuit were to go to trial. The judge found that it is likely that Natalie would prevail in her case against the defendants. The court went through an analysis of the PDGA and the Disc Golf Pro Tour's policy of transgender women competing in the FPO division. They concluded that it was clearly discrimination under the Minnesota Human Rights Act. Interestingly, the judge also separately called out LaVisca Disc Golf Design and said that Natalie was likely to prevail on her claim that LaVisca Disc Golf Design aided and abetted the discrimination committed by the Disc Golf Pro Tour and the PDGA. In our prior videos, we've mentioned the J.C. Cooper versus USA Powerlifting case. That was a case that had similar facts, was decided in Minnesota in favor of J.C. Cooper, a transgender athlete. The court specifically acknowledged that case and said that the defendants' attempts to distinguish the facts in Natalie's case from the facts in the J.C. Cooper case were not persuasive. As many of you know, Natalie prevailed on a similar motion in California right before the OTB Open in Stockton, and she played in the first round of that tournament, and then that decision was reversed on appeal, and she was not permitted to continue playing on the last 2 days of the tournament. The Disc Golf Pro Tour has already released a statement saying that while they don't agree with the court's decision, the tournament will proceed as planned and they will permit Natalie to play in FPO. So I think it's unlikely we're going to see any kind of last minute drama or even like mid-tournament tournament drama like we saw at the OTB Open. That's the latest update that we have as of right now. We'll continue to monitor this situation, obviously, and if there are any new developments, we will do our best to bring those to you as soon as we can. Thanks a lot for watching.